I truly cherish the time that I get to spend with Taylor Lorenz because she's getting older. And, as you get older, we all remember our grandparents, and it was like your parents would say, "Hey, make sure you go see your grandma. She's not going to be around forever." Well, that's kind of how I feel about Taylor Lorenz, the octogenarian, nearing 100 years old at this point, uploaded a 1 minute and 20-second absolute meltdown over the fact that the millennial journalists, as by her own admission, ruined journalism. We see the LA Times on strike, all these journalists on strike. She talks about all these layoffs and things of that nature. And I thought collectively we would enjoy her pain together because there is no worse person other than perhaps an online influencer than a journalist whose life, the modern journalist, there was a time when journalists did good things. There was a time when journalism was an important career, an important, a respected career. But those days are long gone. People stopped buying the newspaper. They went online. News outlets realized they could make a lot more money with hate bait and lies. They started to get partisan, and now we're left with a crumbling film path that has been replaced by, well, YouTubers who are more trustworthy and more well liked. And it's funny to watch a lot of these reporters getting laid off, fired, trying to now become YouTubers because we already hate them. So leave a like to say happy birthday to Taylor Lorenz if you haven't yet. It's an important birthday. She probably doesn't have that many more left. So I think it's important that we all say happy birthday to Taylor Lorenz. Now let's hear what she has to say.
The entire journalism industry is
By the way, why is she holding this mic like an absolute moron? But I digress. We're just 2 seconds in.
basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees.
That's it. Double it. Los Angeles Times plunges into chaos as brutal layoffs loom as senior editors call it quits. Nobody wants your product. Even the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, they've all been compromised. And quite frankly, starting in really 2016, Trump was a big part of opening people's eyes to that. Normies' eyes.
They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year.
In an election year? That's because nobody wants to read their lies.
Laid off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on. But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs.
Good. More. I want more. Whatever number is making Taylor Lorenz concerned about the mass layoff of tens of thousands of journalists. Here's the thing. She says journalists, but they're not journalists. They're propagandists. They are shills. They are liars. They are Nepo babies like Taylor Lorenz, who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth and will never have to worry about money and has made her entire career about ruining other people's careers. And specifically, the large percentage of people's careers that she's tried to ruin are better looking younger women. I wonder why that is.
In the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the
USA, 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 USA. Media companies have slashed over 20,000 jobs, journalist jobs, in 2023. I love it. I wish that number was higher. I would like triple it, quadruple it. How many more? I think we can do more. We can do better. The best part is watching all these clowns striking, right? I think the LA Times is on strike right now. It's like, that they just want to lay you off anyway. You're just making it easier for them, you morons.
Past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week.
Yeah, because Sports Illustrated totally put a trans biological male on the cover, and they got a bunch of likes and retweets, but the hardworking middle Americans that used to buy Sports Illustrated didn't want woke politics, so it's totally not their fault. It's so weird hearing a nearly 90-year-old woman try to talk like a Zoomer. Okay. The reality is, yes, there is a certain degree of media that has just migrated online. People want to get their news online. And then you throw in years of sowing mistrust, years of having, no scruples, no ethics at all. And now people turn to internet commentators. Look how popular someone like Tim Pool is. He's absolutely crushing it. That guy's 40,000 people tuning in every single night to his show. Look at Pat McAfee in the sports world, just a regular old dude, raking in multi-million-dollar contracts left and right because he's just a regular dude, not a journalist, or I like to say, urinalist.
Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And
what I find profound here is that she accepts no blame for it. She took all this time to edit in all these little news clips and all this little stuff. And at no point did she realize that they ruined it. That millennial journalists ruined it. Who was working at BuzzFeed? A bunch of blue-haired millennials and Zoomers. By the way, shout out to millennials. I'm a millennial, right? There are good millennials. There are good Zoomers. There are good boomers. But millennial journalists ruined journalism.
it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering.
Duh. It's cratering. Oh my God. Get me a Werther's Original. I'm a little parched. I mean, get this woman a butterscotch candy from her purse, okay? First of all, the newspaper industry has been collapsing, has collapsed. It really collapsed 20 years ago. Back when she was just in her 60s, the newspaper industry was done. So what are you talking about? It's collapsing. Nobody buys the paper anymore. Who buys the paper? Why would I pay for garbage? It costs me to get rid of it.
Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. Meanwhile,
Wrong. This is also profoundly very on brand for Taylor Lorenz. Radio is not dead. In fact, it's thriving. You want to know the truth? 8 in 10 Americans listen to the radio. 8 in 10. But because the vast majority of talk radio is conservative and their audience is working class, leftist journalists don't even think it exists. You know how many people listen to Glenn Beck on the radio? Alex on the radio? Any conservative talk show on the radio? I mean, it's so funny how there have been multiple blind spots here that a hard-hitting reporter with 125 years of experience like Taylor Lorenz can't possibly see.
While hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair, are on strike because they're also facing impending layoffs.
This is also funny to me. I don't know. Maybe I've never been a pro-union guy. My dad was in a union. I saw how it basically screwed him over. So I've never been. Now, are there probably some good unions out there? I suspect. I see what the teachers union is. I see what my dad's union did. So this is my experience with it. I'm not exactly sure where striking would line up in your ways to combat being laid off. All of these journalists, like writers guilds and all this stuff, they all protest and whine and complain, but they end up getting laid off anyway. You can't force them to keep you employed. I can tell you what, if I was one of these people, I'd be like, if I was working for this company, I'd be make sure I was 5 minutes early every day and staying 5 minutes late every day. There's no way, if I wanted to keep my job, would I be walking in the street? That's the dumbest, idiotic self-select for firing move I could possibly think of.
Even mainstream national media outlets owned by billionaires like the Washington Post, where I work, and the Atlantic, where I used to work, have done layoffs.
And so, again, nobody's buying your crap anymore. I don't need the 1,000th clickbait article about how Elon Musk is an evil superhuman, and how every Tesla is a time bomb from the Washington Post. I know what the Washington Post is going to write. It writes the same crap over and over again. I know what Taylor Lorenz is going to write. Look at this younger, prettier girl and what she's done wrong and why you should hate her. I know that's what Taylor Lorenz is going to write.
If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism.
Because traditional journalism is dead, and it should be. It has been replaced by on-the-ground reporting. People on Twitter, people like who show up on the scene, live streaming. People what happened was, and I'm going to sum it up here, people who were willing to do the work replaced the people who wanted to sit at home with their thermostat in their apartment set to 90 degrees like Taylor Lorenz and not do the work. That's what happened. You got replaced by people who actually wanted to do the work. People like James O'Keefe. You know, am I going to look for a tweet from Taylor Lorenz whining about, Zoomer ramen recipes? Or am I more interested in something that James O'Keefe is reporting on?
Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with.
Oh my God. You know what salary is a function of? Scarcity and demand. There are far more of you than anyone would ever need. No one values your job. That's why you don't make very much money. And with that, I bid you a very happy centennial, very happy 100th birthday. Centennial? Did I get that? Anyway, Taylor Lorenz is old. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.